Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Hawkeye sports fans, to another episode of Punting is Winning, your all Iowa podcast. We are your hosts. He's JD. I'm Keith. Welcome back. Season's getting really, really close. What are we, 13, 12 days? 12 days out at this point. Yeah, I can't get here soon enough. I mean, I like you've said in the past, I hate to wish summer away, but I can't get here soon enough. So let's tackle last week's question of the week, which was, what game is Iowa's most important game or the biggest game on their schedule in terms of how their season will be defined? I think is how we kind of wanted to go in that. And had some responses back. A lot of, some people said, I want to say Iowa State, but they think Indiana's probably the key because that is like the first conference game at home that is a ranked opponent, and winning that game is kind of it can really dictate how your season's going to go. We saw others that said Indiana or Nebraska would be the biggest ones, and of course, I said last week I thought Nebraska might be one of the biggest ones, depending on how the season goes. Iowa State, Penn State was another popular choice. If you win those games, sky's the limit. You could possibly lose just the one game to Oregon if you win those games. So, and then I think somebody else said Albany. I kind of agree in the sense that it's the first game. You got to get that first one under your belt first, and it shouldn't be that difficult. But as Kirk would say, every game is the biggest game on the schedule as you play them.
Well, I think he basically meant Albany from the standpoint of what will we see? Will we see a conservative team, or will we see a team that wants to maybe go out and try to get the cohesion of the team together right away and get the timing down and real game reps against someone other than your own defense, which I'm sure they would be more than happy to hit someone besides their own players, their own defensive players. And he just wants to see him go out and, throw it around a little bit. Let's use this quarterback to his potential. If that's what he does, he throws the ball well, let's throw the ball. Let's try to break 200 yards for passing average per game. This is, we haven't done that for a long time. And I think that needs to be something that needs to be a priority. I think throwing the ball and throwing it well has got to be a priority. I know it takes some of the pressure off the running game if you can throw the ball. You're not stacking, they're not having the team stack the box against you because they have to honor the pass. Whereas before, in the last 5 years, 4 years especially, they could just stack the box because they didn't respect your passing ability.
And yet the team consistently wins 8 games.
Well, I mean, because you do the fundamental things right. You have a very good defense. Typically, last year I think was a little down from what we had been expecting. And you have an awesome special teams. When you got guys that are running back punts and kicks for touchdowns, and you got a punter that's pinning the other team deep in their own territory, you're playing field position game, and you're very good at that. And Iowa has excelled in that throughout the last 3 or 4 years, and even before that. So you get a good punter, you get a good place kicker that can kick fairly regular from 50 plus, up to 55. You just have to rely on your defense. And that's what they did more than anything, was rely on defense to get a turnover and put them in plus territory. And that's happened a lot.
And that's, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago that sometimes the yardage stats don't mean near as much when you've got elite special teams that can get you good field position. Because if your average drives are 50 yards or less, you're obviously your total offense and your total yardage on your offense is going to be lower. And, when you can play those shortened fields with the ball, the possession control offense that we have anyway, you have the opportunity to be able to, maybe experiment a little bit more and kind of air it out just a little bit, because you're still in plus territory. And, maybe it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take a shot on second down. And if I don't get it on second and I can't get it on third, I'm probably still in field goal position, so I'm okay. Whereas if I'm in minus territory, I'm less likely to. I'm less likely to take those shots or take those chances. So I don't know. That's kind of the way I would see it from a conservative perspective of game planning and ball control. But and that's kind of what we've seen with Kirk over the years. So maybe given the opportunity to let Tim Lester do a little bit more because we're in a better situation. It's always complimentary football with Iowa anyway. We're not going to be the team that runs out there and throws the ball 100 times and puts up 70 points. That's just not our identity. But to get into that 30-point range and put up 350 to 400 yards a game, that's not unacceptable. That's not out of the realm. That's not something that, as fans, we would be saying, "Oh gosh, that's terrible." We'd be ecstatic over that.
Well, getting back to the question,
yeah,
I know last week I kind of alluded to my answer to the question, and I want to reiterate and give an example or give reasoning behind why I selected Iowa State, as many of you will remember from last week. The reason I say that is because Iowa State is the first team on your schedule that I think you're matched up with that you may not have the advantage as far as talent level or at least where the rankings are. Iowa State does play 2 games prior to Iowa, and they could lose to Kansas State and Ireland on this coming Saturday. So if you guys want to know, there is football this coming Saturday, so it's the beginning of the season. If they would happen to lose to Kansas State, then Iowa would be a little bit less of an important for the game. But if they go ahead and take care of business and they beat Kansas State, then you've got a potentially, because I think they have nobody next after that, you have a potentially ranked team probably in the top, I would say probably in the top 15, because I think they're rated 20th now or 22nd. So if you win that game, you're probably going to jump up a little bit. And then you're going to have that game on the road as your second game after beating Albany, which they will do. So to me, that's important because you're on the road against a ranked opponent who is playing their third game. If you can somehow figure out a way to get that game and pull it out, I think that just builds a huge amount of confidence and a huge amount of momentum going into the season. And that's the reason why I think that game is so pivotal for how the season could go, plus how early it is in the season. If the Iowa State game was the 6th game of the season, I probably wouldn't have them as the most important game. But to me, I think Iowa State's just that jumping ground. If you win it, and you win it in style, or even if you win it in the last seconds, I don't care. That's going to just propel you forward. It's going to give you a lot of confidence going forward that you can beat a ranked team on the road, and that's just going to help. That's the reason why I selected Iowa State as opposed to, let's say, a Penn State who may very well be ranked number 1, could be ranked number 1 coming into Iowa City that night or that day. I don't know that we discussed.
I don't think it's
been determined how. I hope it's a night game because Iowa always plays better at night, especially at home. Then I think Iowa has a better opportunity at that point to maybe pull the upset and knock off Penn State. I know there's people out there that are saying that Iowa could very easily knock off Penn State. I don't think it's going to be quite that easy. I wouldn't predict it at this point, but we'll see what happens in the first 5-6 weeks.
You're also talking 6 weeks into the season. You don't know when comes injury time. Drew Aller could be hurt by then, and they could be back to a backup quarterback that's just, we saw it at that game last time at Kennedy.
Yeah.
When
it was Michael Robinson that came in, he was not ready.
Well, I don't. It wasn't Michael Robinson, but it was Trey Roberson.
Roberson, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's irrelevant who came in. He was terrible.
Yeah, he wasn't ready.
Couldn't move the ball. So if that's the case, maybe I don't know who Penn State has up to that point. I didn't really pay attention to their schedule, so I don't know if they're coming off of a tough game prior to the Iowa game. More than likely, the way the Big Ten Conference goes, they're not. Typically, teams come into Iowa City like that off of a bye. But we'll see.
I don't know. Would you rather come off of a bye and play a big game like that, or would you rather have a game the week before to try to just keep from getting rusty?
Depends on who it is.
Not really done well coming off buys.
Depends on who it is. If you're coming, let's say you're Penn State and you're coming into Iowa City and you're coming off a game against Purdue. Okay, it's like having a bye. but you actually don't have the bye. You've got you keep a little bit less rust on you, or you come in on a bye after having played. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's all depends on who you've played up to that point and when that bye, when that game is. Like I said, if it was coming off a game against Purdue, I'd be like, I'd rather play the game. But if I'm coming off of my last game being Ohio State or Oregon, yeah, I want that bye week in there to help get a little healthy and be able to game prep, because more than likely you've been game prepping for them most of the year. It's just a matter of when it is. That's how I would look at it.
Yeah. The schedule, when the schedules come out, you just look at them and say, oh yeah, it's a schedule for this year. But you really need to analyze the games and how they fall in your schedule, as opposed to just that they do fall in your schedule. I mean, it's just there's some intangibles there, that things that who knows at the end of the season. I'm glad that's why we take on Nebraska at the end of the season. Is there's a lot of times Nebraska is either they're already out of it and they don't have a bowl game to even prepare for, or they're so injury riddled that they don't have much left, or maybe they come in full strength and Iowa goes out and beats them 9 out of the last 10 times. That's a dig on Nebraska, by the way. But I don't know. That's the one game of the season you want to see them win, because that propels you into the postseason and or next season, depending on how it goes.
Well, that's why I picked the Nebraska game. Depending on how the previous 11 games have gone, will determine what that game means. Are you fighting for a bowl game? Are you fighting for a playoff position? Are you completely out of it at that point, and it doesn't really matter, but you're preparing for propelling yourself into the next part of next year. How do you finish the season dictates how you begin the season next year, or something to that effect. So yeah, that's why I kind of felt that was one of the more important games, even though, I don't know, it's just one of those games that I don't want to say. I'm not going to say it because I would jinx it, so I'm not even going to say it.
We do have a new question of the week, so we can
Yes.
go on from that one. The new question of this week is that if you're a gambler, you'll understand this and love this, but Vegas has Iowa coming out as a win total of 7.5 wins this season. Are you taking the over, that they'll win 8 or more, or are you taking the under, that they'll win 7 or less? That's the question. Are you taking the over or the under at 7.5? Put it in the comments, and at the end of the season, we'll see how well you did. I will let you know next week what I think the answer to the question on my end would be. I won't try to influence the people that want to do the answer to the question.
Well, let's move on from that. I think you had a little blurb about the women's soccer team.
Yeah, because football hasn't started doesn't mean all the other sports haven't started. So soccer started, women's soccer. And if I remember right, they made the Sweet 16 last year, and really, I think it was very unexpected that they did. So I think this year they are just heads and tails above, because I know they were excited and the season went better than I thought. Well, it's starting out really, really well. So the number 13 Iowa Hawkeye women's soccer team, I want to say basketball, but soccer team went down to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and beat number 6 Arkansas in an upset. I don't remember the score. I was going to write it down.
3-2.
Was it?
I think it was 3-2.
3-2. Okay. Well, hey, that's an upset. And then you said that the same Arkansas team. Go ahead.
Played number 2 Notre Dame to a 2-2 tie. So, yeah, and I think the new rankings did come out. I want to say Iowa had moved up to 7th.
Really? From 13th to 7th.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
So I could be wrong. If I am wrong,
going.
Please, correct me in the comments. But I'm pretty sure that's what I saw.
Well, I'm not a huge soccer person, so I don't really know that much about it. It was never offered when I was in school. I think I would have tried to play it had it been offered. I would have tried to play it just to stay in shape, if nothing else, for the other sport that I played. So, but I was never real big into running for a long period of time, so I may not have been much of a player. But I don't know. Do you want to talk about maybe Monday's Big Ten preview and DiNardo and
Yeah.
Jake Butt and
Yeah, I was not really. I don't want to say I was surprised because those guys usually heap a lot of praise on Iowa anyway. But I think there was a lot more guarded optimism from them that was on display, and even in the interviews with Kirk Ferentz and with Phil Parker, there were questions that they asked that were the same things that we would ask as fans, like, what's your level of concern on the back end of the defense? And I don't know so much if it was coach speak, but Phil Parker's pretty blunt about what he thinks. He's not going to just make everything all sunshine and roses. If there was things that needed to be cleaned up, he'd probably say something along the lines of, we're working on things. We're not there yet. Guys are really working hard. But his words were more like, I like what we have. And that seems to be those, when you really start to think about how Phil Parker and Ferentz and Tim Lester say things, you put the body language, the intonation, and just the words that they use, it kind of gives you that feeling that they just feel like this is a really, really good team this year and that they can see good things on the horizon for them. Now, they could be a much better team than they've been in the last 3 years and have a worse record because the schedule's harder on paper. We don't, until people play, I don't know that the schedule is any harder. I just haven't seen those other teams. But I liked what I heard, and I liked things, these guys have gone to other practices. Now, granted, this Iowa was about the 6th stop in there? 6th or 8th, something. I think they're still not done. So they haven't seen everybody. But, talking about the offensive line as being elite, which I think as fans, we would be ecstatic if they were elite. We don't see it, but outsiders see it. They're confident in the quarterback room. They're confident in the running back room, even though we had guys that were out during that practice. Kamari Moulton and Terrell Washington were both out, but they liked what they saw from Jazz. Jazz runs hard, and we've all liked what we've seen from Nathan McNeil at this point. And from everything I'm hearing, don't count out Xavier Williams. He's pushing, and Brevin Dahl has done well. So I think there wasn't a ton that you could get that we hadn't already talked about or we already knew, especially when it came to coming off of a kids' day practice, 2 days before that. So I don't know what all you can take from it, but it just seemed like they were very complimentary, and it wasn't the same old, this is your typical team. It was more enthusiastic about what kind of team that they were talking about. So that always leads me to think that we're either going to be pleasantly surprised by what we see, or the expectations have been built up in our minds that we're going to be pleasantly surprised by how disappointed we will be. So I shouldn't say pleasantly surprised. We'll be surprised by how disappointed we'll be.
Yeah. Jake Butt said a couple of things that I thought were kind of noteworthy. One of them was that he referenced Addison Stringa as being the next great big, Iowa big tight end that's going to go into the pros and do great things. I'm not sure. I'm not there yet with that, but I think he has potential to be. The only issue I have with that is I think that Iowa is less, especially under the new Shanahan offense that Tim pushes. I think we're less of a tight end than we were as far as throwing the ball. But I have a feeling with Gronowski, he threw the ball to the tight end over at South Dakota State quite often. So I have a feeling he's going to use the tight ends a little more than maybe the Shanahan offense even would tend to believe. If you follow their concepts. Well, the other thing was they talked about the depth of the defensive line, which is huge. I 100% agree with that. I think that's your mainstay. I think that's your deepest position group out of all the positions, including running back. Even though you've got a stable of running backs, I think you've got some guys that are proven. Kamari Moulton, TJ Washington, even Jazz has run the ball. But after that, you got nothing. And you know how Big Ten, it is a grind, and running backs you know,
Get chewed
just
up.
like 2004, you never know what could happen. You can have 5 guys get hurt and you're down to your 6th player. We just hope that doesn't happen. And I hope, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But that's the kind of season you could have. Everything could be great going up through fall, and all of a sudden, you know, game number 1, you have a guy go down with a ACL and he's done for the year, and then you're down to the backups, or even the backups backup. That's the thing you got to, you know. And I feel like if that would happen on some of the defensive line, I think we're still okay. I think there's just enough talent behind the starters and even behind them that I think that group would still be pretty darn good. That's the group that I felt like has the most depth and the most ability to overcome injuries as the season would progress. Whereas I don't see that. Maybe I do see that a little bit with the wide receivers. I think you've got some pretty good wide receivers. I think there's several of them that are going to be decent, although we don't know that yet. We just from what we're hearing, KJ Parker and, you know, Jarrett Bowie and some of those guys like that are pushing for playing time, and that's fantastic. I think they should. Just those are the things that I think that they referenced in that media day that they had, that I was excited to hear about. Things I think we already kind of knew, having, you know, knowing a little bit more than the average Hawkeye fan, but it was nice to know that they were able to key on those points as well and identify that, like we have identified those things.
So, quick off the cuff question here for you: can you name the running backs from that 2004-2005 season?
Sam Brownlee.
Sam Brownlee was the one that we ended up at the end of the year. But who all got hurt? Do you remember all of them that got hurt?
Was that prior to Albert Young?
I'm thinking Albert Young was the first, and it was Jermel Lewis, Marcus Simmons. Simmons transferred in from Nebraska. There was another kid. Wasn't Pocky O'Meara on that group too?
Could have been. That's a good pull. It could have been.
And I can't remember who the other. There was another running back, and I don't remember who it was. I remember being, that's the end of the season with Sam Brownlee. I think even was Marcus Simmons like available in the bowl game at that point? He might have been.
Well, that was a good year because isn't 2004? Didn't they tie for the Big Ten championship? That was before the bowl, the game, the actual championship game. I thought it was 2002, 2004.
Yeah, I think
maybe
that's
I'm
right.
wrong.
Yeah, because I think they had to beat Wisconsin because Ohio State had beaten Michigan. Because Ohio State was not challenging for the conference title that year, but Michigan was. And by Ohio State beating Michigan, Iowa needed to beat the winner of the Iowa-Wisconsin game was going to basically be the co-Big Ten champs. And Iowa beat Wisconsin. It was supposedly one of those things like, you're going to go to the Rose Bowl, but it didn't happen.
I was thinking that was the 30-7 game. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember the trophy presentation on the field afterwards.
I was there.
I was there too.
It was in Iowa City. I remember that. So I was there because I had tickets then at that point, so I would have been there. But
I know I was there for that.
Yeah.
Cold. Yeah. Kind of a cold night too.
But it was so enjoyable. You didn't notice the cold after the game was over and they'd won, and then we heard that Michigan had lost, and
well, we knew that prior to.
Yeah, well, during the game, I think at the end or beginning of the game. So all they had to do was win. And they did. So yeah, good times. I remember that Pocky O'Meara poll from you was outstanding. I had forgotten completely about him.
But, yeah. Another guy that I don't know if he was on that team or not, but it was in that time frame era was Jamie Murphy, the Irish starbomb. It's on the special teams, the guy that just go down there and just blow up the wedge or blow up the returner or whatever it was. Good times, those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to add from the media day? I don't. There wasn't a lot.
No, just like you said, the tight ends in the West Coast offense are not as featured, but I think you're right. I think that's that Gronowski views his tight ends as his safety blanket. So even though they're not maybe the prime focus, they're still going to get targeted quite a bit, because I think that's a good check down option. There's a good you get a good matchup on a very talented tight end on a seam against a linebacker. You've got the advantage there, or you're playing against a safety and a linebacker, and you can drop it over the top of the linebacker in between the safety. That's a good spot for the tight end or the slot receiver. So I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the tight end stuff. You're not going to see the tight end usage like we saw under Brian Ferentz, where basically they were going to focus on the tight end, and then the wide receivers were the checkdowns. It's kind of goes back to a traditional. Tight ends are there to add that extra offensive lineman at the end of the line, but have the ability to catch, and we have guys that can do both. And that's a commodity that every offensive coordinator would love to have.
Yeah, I know that there's been some people that have talked about different things on when it comes to being concerned about the left tackle. We mentioned this just on passing last week. We talked about left tackle being a little bit on the suspect side. That might be the only weak spot in the offensive line at this point. But one of the things I think that if it becomes an issue, that they could start running double tight end sets and put a tight end over there to help. And that may help with keeping that defensive end from just completely bull rushing. And if you're not,
you go max.
Yeah, just
the problem is if you go max protect like that, then you're limiting your. You're down to what, three targets basically out of the backfield, or off the line, and you've got 5 guys on the back end to cover 3 guys. It's difficult.
Well, that is difficult, but also by the same token, if you're constantly allowing the left end into the backfield and disrupting, and you're getting your quarterback crushed 3 or 4 times a game, how long is it before you're down to your backup, and how long before are you 4 games in and your backup's hurt? You've got to shore up the ability to keep your quarterback upright, and that's his most important side, is the blind side. Unless you're running a left-handed quarterback out there, then you can see it coming.
Well,
we don't have one on schedule or
about
on the roster, so
you can always bring that tight end in to chip or do a rub off of that defensive end, just to give you enough time, and then flare out into the flat.
You could bring a running back to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
But running backs typically aren't as great when it comes to blocking.
I'd rather have the tight end there.
Especially when you got a defensive end at full bore coming at you, and you're trying to. I mean, that's a difficult assignment when you're a little bit smaller of a
5'8", 200 pounds, going up against a guy that's 6'5", 260.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be in that.
I would struggle with that.
Be like,
you'd see a lot of Ole blocks from me.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like, you're on your own. Run.
You better run.
Take off.
What's the code word? Fire, or something like that.
It should be run.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on a little bit to basketball. Haven't really heard a whole ton of stuff out of basketball lately. Did see an interview they did with Tavion Banks, and they basically brought in video of Tavion Banks because he'd never heard of it, and then he was just like, dude can run. It was kind of a fun thing to watch. It was, to us, Tavion Banks is like, we remember him like it's yesterday, but that's, you go back to the late 1990s when he was playing, these guys weren't even born. We look at it like, oh yeah, I remember Tavion Banks. Guys today don't even know him because they weren't even born at the time.
The one game I remember Tavion Banks is when Iowa played Tulsa. And I want to say Tavion Banks.
I think he had like 300 yards rushing.
300 something, 15 yards or something rushing. And they couldn't even stop him. They couldn't even slow him down. He was ripping off 50, 60-yard runs like it was nothing. It was just that was Iowa's offense that night. It was just hand the ball off Tavion, let him go.
You didn't need anything else.
I think Iowa won that game fairly handily. I don't remember.
56-10, probably 53-10, something like that.
But they did have Tulsa one time. I think it was Tulsa one time before that, and it was actually a close game.
Well, they had Tulsa at Tulsa and lost 27, 26 or something like that. I
Yeah.
remember them losing to Tulsa in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the last times that Hayden Fry took a team on the road for a non-conference game other than Iowa State.
Yeah. Yeah. We learn from our lessons, learn from our mistakes, right? Learn lessons from our mistakes.
Yeah. Other than that, I haven't heard anything out of that other than just, guys are working. Trey Thompson isn't allowed to practice with the team yet because he hasn't finished his classes, but that may be changed now. But he has been playing pickup games with them. So basically, he's allowed to lift, but he's not allowed to participate in a structured practice. But when they have their off the side and just have pickup games, he's allowed to do that. And I think that's just kind of the way around the system a little bit of let's just go ahead.
I do remember
they're not being coached by a coach, but they're being coached by guys that are on the court like Bennett Sturts and guys that have been in the program for a couple of years. So it's like having the coach there. It's just a little bit different.
I think I did remember them here. I heard them say that he had like one more class or something he was going to have to take for summer, and that I didn't know how that was going to affect his ability to actually be on the court and stuff. So I guess until you officially get your last credit for graduation, you're not allowed to participate apparently.
Yeah, which I think
he's probably done that now.
Don't classes start this week? Or did they start today, maybe? I thought I saw something about a welcome letter from the University of Iowa about welcoming students back to campus, and maybe it's later this week, but he's going to have it done by then. So
yeah,
I would assume he's probably got it done and he's able to participate at this point. So
yeah, I haven't seen anything really come out of there. I think they're kind of in a lull right now. Probably getting the school season, school year started, getting classes figured out and that kind of thing. So they're probably only just doing light workouts. They're not going to show videos of that or anything like that. They're going to, just shoot around, stuff like that. And then they'll pick it back up soon. And
I don't know. Those videos of shoot arounds would be fine with me.
Yeah.
Pickup games, shoot arounds. I don't need to see them in a full blown practice, but I'd like to see them going up against kind of each other in live situations. But I'd be okay with that. As long as you don't get hurt.
I'm excited for that season to start as well. And, things are pretty tight-lipped out of Kennett going this last week. I haven't seen much out of anything. It's been really quiet, which is good. If you started getting really like big headlines of such and such and such and such got hurt and they're out for the season, those are the things you dread and it scares you. But not hearing anything can be kind of a good thing.
I mean, the things that I have heard, I've heard that Kamari Moulton is back to practice now. And when it comes to the quarterback situation, and again, you can take this with a grain of salt. This is just something I read. Can't even really remember where I read it at. Hank Brown is looking very good. Gronowski is not looking as good as Hank Brown, but it's not a matter of not knowing the plays. It's just a matter of getting the timing down with his receivers. So I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. I think he just needs some reps with him. And over the next 2 weeks, game prep, you're going to start putting in, next week you're going to put in the game plan for Albany, and he's going to be able to focus in on a set structured number of plays that he can work his timing out with them during those practices. So I'm not overly concerned with that. If he does struggle, the good thing is it's Albany. It's not like, we're going up against, I don't know, Pitt or somebody like that even.
Well, as we alluded to it earlier in the beginning of the show, to me, I think it's so important that when you've got a quarterback who's a first-time starter at Iowa, and he's learning and functioning through the system, mostly the nomenclature, the language, not necessarily the plays. I'm sure he ran similar plays, but he needs to get the timing down with his receivers and tight ends. That's something I think that Iowa really, really needs to focus in on and work on, is that timing. And because, you're not going to get a freebie in the next week. You got Iowa State at Iowa State. So you need to really focus in on timing, getting wide receiver routes, getting guys in the right positions, throwing the ball in the right areas when pressure's coming from certain angles. Just knowing where your check downs are, throwing to the running backs, throwing to the wide receivers, just getting all of that cohesive flow to the offense where, you can use that as a momentum, as a jumping board to the next game. Now, I realize that, it's the old adage, you improve the most between first and second game. I hope that's true, but I sure would like to see improvement in the first game.
I look for us to struggle like the first possession or two. And not struggle in the sense of 2, 3 and outs. I mean, it's possible, don't get me wrong, but be more of we'll pick up first downs, but they're going to be kind of ugly. Maybe having to scramble to get the first down because they're not completing passes. But that's going to get ironed out as the first quarter goes along, I think. Because again, it's hard to judge and it's hard to gauge that timing as well when you're going up against your own defense that knows your plays, knows your players, knows their tendencies, all that stuff. Albany's not going to know any of that crap. So, they're going to go in and go, okay, well, this guy, they're not probably going to look at it and say, oh, well, these guys haven't had a wide receiver room that's been worth a darn for several years, so we're not going to really worry too much about it. Iowa State's going to look at it a little bit differently. They got a quarterback now that they haven't had, so we better pay attention to the throwing game. Let's still stack the box on the running game because we're still not sold on their wide receivers. So I think that's where I think Iowa could have an advantage if they can come out and play that first game decently enough and get that traction and get that repetition and the timing down. That will give them an advantage going in.
Agreed. And there's two schools of thought here. Is Iowa's always been the type that's been pretty mundane, pretty vanilla for the first game. They don't show them anything. But I think you have to look at this as a little bit of two ways. One, yes, you want to kind of stay as vanilla as you can. You don't want to show too much, but by the same token, you do need to get that confidence level up. You need to get him throwing the ball. You need to see how, if he's on target, if he's making the right reads. You need to make sure that you've got just a flow to the game, a flow to the offense that you haven't seen for a while. And this is going to be a pretty good team to do that against. I don't think Albany's got a whole lot. And I don't think they should even stay in the game, to be honest. But this is a time when Iowa should be working on things, working on plays that if they run them one time early and it doesn't work, go back to it again, run it again. Take them to the sidelines and say, what did we do wrong on that? Let's go back out. We're going to run it again in the next quarter or even in a couple of series. Expect that play to come back. I want it to run better this time.
Well, and I think the other thing that can help is the fact that you see Tim Lester's offense and you can run multiple plays out of the same formation. So if you run out there and you show them a formation and you run a specific play and, you could deke somebody into, they're going to run this end around reverse. Well, now I'm running that same formation, but I'm running a post pattern on a play action rollout, whatever. So I think that's where we haven't had that in the past. Wow. So I don't know. We'll talk more about this next week when we really start to focus in on game week and previewing the Albany game in more detail. Because I haven't really given Albany much look, and I don't know that I really need to. Well, I hate to sound arrogant doing that, but they're a 4-8 FCS team. I'll
try to get all the pertinent information as far as, where they're located, that kind of thing, and just do a little background on them.
Well, they're located in Albany.
Well, right. But I'm thinking about what conference are they affiliated with, and what have they done? If they have a new coach, or they have an old coach?
They have an interim coach.
Are they senior laden? Are they young? I'll try to dive into that kind of stuff and give you the 411 on that.
Yep, I have looked a little bit into them. They do have an interim coach, and they have a brand new quarterback and lost a lot of receivers. So, 4-8 team is probably looking at maybe a 2-10 year.
Okay. Well, so I caught him on a good year then.
Yeah. Anyway.
And this can be short and sweet this week. I don't really have a whole lot else unless you've got something you want to talk about.
Nope, I got nothing else. I was just going to say I was going to wrap it up.
Yeah, we're wrapping up. We'll do the, like I said, we'll do the preview next week. And then we'll have game time.
Yep.
Excited.
Getting closer. All right. Well, as always, if you like the content, give us a like, a subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, thank you to the ones that have subscribed recently. Are up to 60 now. Woohoo! I feel like we're hitting the big time now. Anybody else that wants to jump on, feel free to jump on the bandwagon. We're starting to get more views, I think, probably because the season's getting closer. People are itchy and anticipating, wanting some stuff here, some content to read or listen to. So we appreciate that. Make sure you check us out on our social media pages. Check out our merch store if you are interested in buying anything. I wore my shirt yesterday to the Iowa State Fair and had a few people comment on it. And Herky actually got a picture with me and Herky's pointing at it. And he's like, yep, thumbs up, because he did a little punt thing. And yeah, it was kind of neat. So people recognize it.
Good.
So
that's good.
All right.
I always like that.
Yeah. So that's all I've got. You have anything else? All right. Well, let's round it off on a Go Hawks and get out of here. So
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.